Shabba-da-dooba, shabba-da-cha. Scoop, scoop-ly-bop-boo, da-dooba-dooba-dooba-da. The personal is political. Welcome to Snake Oil, a podcast where the personal is political. We're your hosts, Juno
and Benzie, coming at you every other Thursday with radical vulnerability and authenticity.
To support the podcast, you can visit our Patreon page at snakeoilpodcast.com. There you can access exclusive bonus material
and other cool perks. You can also support the podcast for free by liking, commenting, or sharing.
Thank you for listening. So today we're talking about a lot of different issues that are connected to a recent conference that we went to and actually helped to organize for, I guess we were organizing it for almost a year.
Mm-hmm.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And it was a pretty, I don't know what adjective I'd use to describe it, interesting, but that's really neutral.
It was good.
There are lots of pros and cons.
Didn't you think it was wonderful?
So I got a lot out of the conversations that I had that happened outside of the sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the benefit of the unconference to me was that I had the opportunity to hang out with a few people who I think are really valuable, and I met one new person who I think is really awesome, and had like pretty amazing conversations with those people, you being one of them. And I went to I'd say one session that actually ended up being part of like the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
That was like really valuable to me.
So I find every time I go to a conference, usually the actual sessions don't end up being super valuable. Like every once in a while there's one or two. But what ends up being really important is the people I meet and curating the space that draws the other people I might be interested in.
Okay.
So I feel like the fact that we met that person,
mm-hmm.
who I think is super valuable and I want in my life now,
mm-hmm.
If the whole conference was to lead to that moment, that it was worth it and it was successful.
I think so too, yeah. Okay. That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I typically, was thinking of it more like that situation arose spontaneously, and so like the structure of the conference wasn't the most valuable thing to me. But that is what we created the conference for.
Was to create the space that drew those people to it.
Right. But it was really only one person. Well, we drew two people. One of them we already knew, and the new person. So
when I go to Beyond the Love, like a different conference that I've gone to a couple times, I just met one person, and I was so thankful I went there. And that conference has hundreds of people.
Okay.
So we got one person out of, like, less than 40.
Yeah, you're right. And really, we got two people, because, again, we got that person who we already know who came.
Yeah, and also, I actually, even though, since we're only saying positive things, I am just going to use names. Or do you think that's not okay?
I think that's fine. Yeah. I don't care. I think that's fine.
Clara is the person I'm like most excited about, but I actually do feel like I met other people who I'm excited to interact with socially.
Okay.
I
didn't.
You didn't. I mean, you're excited that one person invited us to a party and.
Yeah. Okay. I'm mildly excited, but I'm not. I'm excited about the possibility of seeing where that social interaction will go. Yeah. I didn't really have a conversation with that person at the conference at all, so I have no idea what they have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's like a base value.
I feel like
of just knowing a new person.
We created at least a mildly larger network of people that share values.
I agree. Share some values.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I mean, we don't even share all the exact same values.
That's true. We share a lot of them, which is important. So I think that we should say what we're talking about.
No
one knows what conference we're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So, this was a relationship anarchy unconference that we planned, and it was called RAD. Which now I feel like
relationship anarchy discussions.
Right. Which I think is kind of sappy. Or not sappy, but just like corny.
I love it.
Really? Okay.
I love the acronym.
I think it's a little corny.
I mean, but it's I feel like it's catchy.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, so
I'm attached to it. I came up with it, so.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay.
It's okay. I feel like your arm like ending off screen is like really bothering me.
Okay, I feel really comfortable.
Okay.
Is this better for you? Yeah, this is very, like, I like this a lot.
It's better for me, but, like, it doesn't actually matter.
I might change it at some point, but we'll see. But yeah, so the conference was meant to bring a bunch of people together who have lived experience of relationship anarchy, and are beyond
A 101.
a 101 level. So we didn't have to do any like 101 education about what relationship anarchy is. And that
or deal with the conversation of like, is relationship anarchy the way?
Right, like even a valid thing that people should be practicing.
Yes.
So with those basics out of the way and knowing that we all share a lot of basic values, it was really cool to have conversations with people that went to like a 2.0 or a 3.0 level.
Yeah.
And that were inspiring and challenging.
Not even went to, but started at. Like,
Yeah,
I
for
said
sure.
multiple
Yeah.
times during the conference, I had like a lot of expectations of these conversations I've had before, like starting here. But they started like over here instead. So, and usually we don't even get all the way over there by the end of the conversation in a normal discussion group. So
yeah, so I did feel like they went further,
yeah,
which was fun.
And we planned a lot of really cool direct action moves, which was really cool.
Yeah, well, did we plan a lot of them? I'm inspired to do some direct action. I don't know if we...
I think we at least
had, like, a
talked, we
list.
talked about a lot of things that could be done as direct action.
Yeah. You're gonna make that brighter?
Yeah,
Cool.
well, I thought I set it to not fall asleep the
It's
entire
okay.
time, but...
Now you're gonna have to move that
Oh,
thing every time.
it's because it's not plugged in. I'm just going to get up for a second.
Okay. So yeah, I felt like the direct action part of it didn't go very far at the end. Like, we basically came up with a list, but I don't feel like anyone really made plans to do anything with that.
Well,
So
we made
I'm
plans to
hoping that it did.
officially, like, instead of having just theory discussion groups all the time,
Mhm.
start a direct action discussion group, which would actually set direct action events, and then we would discuss if they were successful or not, and then
Okay.
continue to do things like that. And I think we also talked about a lot of ways that people can, in their daily life, use direct action.
You're right. I think that's true, and I am inspired to do that.
Giving people those tools was really valuable.
Mhm. Yeah.
Especially people who don't actually like act in subversive ways usually in their daily life.
Yeah, I felt very inspired to plan direct action. For instance, the one that I proposed, which I don't want to talk too much about, because I'm honestly like worried that it could somehow get out and like people.
Yeah, we'll talk about it after we do it.
You know what I
right?
mean? Well, just I don't want anyone to like get in the way of it happening or like. Right, it's like someone who like supports marriage and monogamy. So, like somehow sabotaging it. So I'm like
so we
notifying
should talk
these
about it
people.
afterwards.
Okay, fine. I'm just saying that that I'm excited about this thing, and I think it's going to be really cool. So yeah, we'll talk about it on the podcast later after it happens. But yeah, I feel like it would be good to talk a little bit about what the hell relationship anarchy is for people who don't know. We did touch on it really briefly in the Jordan Peterson and Forced Monogamy episode.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like we didn't really flesh it out that well in that episode. So I want to talk about it a little bit more. I would love for you to start.
Yeah, I want to talk about it too because I actually, from like posting a lot of stuff on my Instagram about the conference, got a message that said like, "What is relationship anarchy?" And I said like, it's really hard to explain it in an Instagram comment, but I just gave like a couple sentences, and then I said, if you want more information later, let me know, and I'll send you like more fleshed out results. So I'd love to actually think about and have something fleshed out to send them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely think that, well, here's the issue, is that there's I feel like there's two different perspectives on relationship anarchy, and I'm validating the possibility of both of them, or I'm considering the possibility of both of them being valid. One is that relationship anarchy is applying politically anarchist principles, like people who identify as anarchists and are against the state and everything and against any hierarchy relations in society, applying all of those principles to interpersonal relationships in the same way, which will result in non-monogamy, basically. And not only non-monogamy, but
anti-monogamy
and practicing interpersonal relating in non-hierarchical ways in which we don't limit people's autonomy or create rules for how people that we engage with can engage with other people. So, for instance, there's no such thing as cheating. What else would I say? God.
Well, wouldn't you say that both schools of relationship anarchy apply politically anarchist principles to interpersonal relating, but one school says
No.
you have to also apply those to everything?
I don't know. So wait, so the other school that she's referencing now that I didn't reference yet is that there's the perspective that relationship anarchy is not related to political anarchy. It's just a method of interpersonal relating.
I think
And
it's
so-
still, the method is still like it draws from the principles
Of anarchy originally, you're right. So in like the short manifesto for relationship anarchy, that
Mhm.
what's her name? Their name? I'm not sure.
We'll put a link.
Andy Nordgren, I think is how you pronounce this person's name. But so that person wrote this manifesto, short instructional manifesto, which we'll link. And I believe that they were getting those principles from the theory of political anarchy.
Yeah, so I think the split is just people who think you have to like also practice political anarchy, and people who are like, no, I can use this just for my interpersonal relating.
And so, yeah, people in the latter category might still believe in having a state, like so
Yeah.
the existence of some kind of state authority, and some kind of centralized government. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and I haven't, and I don't know where I'll like go with this in the future of my life because I can't predict who future Benzie will be. But right now, I haven't like completely given up an attachment to the government as useful.
Okay.
So I like right now wouldn't completely or even generally identify as an anarchist.
Yeah, I don't identify as an anarchist. Well, I don't identify as a relationship anarchist anymore, or someone who's even practicing anarchist relating, because I do have an issue with the problem with the concept of anarchy. I don't agree with what the RA/anarchist project is, which is to abolish all power relations in society
Mm-hmm.
and to abolish any hierarchy that exists, because I think that there's value to hierarchical systems. And I think that power inequality and power relations can be positive and productive relations. So I don't think those are inherently oppressive or negative. Yeah, that's what I would say.
I also like wouldn't identify as a relationship anarchist, but appreciate looking at a lot of my relationships, and in general, I enjoy a significant amount of those values and put them into my practice.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't agree with abolishing all power relations, but I don't agree with how do I say this? With limiting people's autonomy who I want to relate with.
Mm-hmm.
So I would never like expect someone to have any sort of like a monogamous agreement with me, or even to have like a closed polyamorous system with me where they can like only see certain other people and not others outside of that.
Well, yeah, and generally,
So, yeah.
I only want to control my behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That
I think that's the biggest thing that I agree with in relationship anarchy still, is that you can't control other people. You can only control yourself.
mm-hmm.
So personal autonomy is really huge. And because I'm an individualist, like that's what I would probably identify with the most, like the idea that I'm responsible for myself as an individual. I'm not responsible for other people. That is also like something that puts me at odds with a lot of politically anarchist thinking, because for the most part, most politically anarchist thinking that I'm exposed to is more leftist in terms of like it's more collectivist, the idea that like everyone is or should be responsible for everybody else in the society and for everybody's needs getting met all the time. You're having an interesting look on your face.
Well, just because I feel like the principle of like not having to anticipate everyone else's needs is something a lot of us care about. Like,
I
and
think
by
so
us, I don't just
too.
a lot of people who I know who are left-leaning anarchists.
And I think that that's a contradiction for them, that they aren't fully able to reconcile
Mm.
with their anarchism. Because I don't want to speak for other people, but I do think there's kind of like a view that like on an individual basis, yeah, we say we don't want to be responsible for for meeting other people's needs or anticipating them. We're only responsible for ourselves. But then on a mass level, when it comes to economics or like people's, I don't know, societal level, I am not articulating myself right now.
I mean,
Politics. Wait, let me finish
Okay.
really quick. When it comes to like larger scale politics that these people believe in, they do want to structure systems in such a way that we all become responsible for meeting people's needs as a society. So that's a conflict to me. That's a contradiction.
But you agree that in general you want people to be taken care of.
Well, what do
Right.
you, not necessarily, it depends on what you mean by taken care of.
Like, you are a supporter of UBI, right? And
Yeah, I'm supportive of UBI mainly because
universal health care.
I don't know if I'm supportive of universal health care.
Okay.
I think I've heard pros and cons to it, and I feel like it's something that I want to really understand better before I say whether or not I support it.
Okay.
I've heard some pretty like interesting arguments against it that it could somehow, and you may want to like educate me about this.
Yeah.
Um,
Not that I am an expert on
Okay.
it either, but
that it's possible that having universal healthcare and allowing that it could, I don't know how to say this.
lower the quality of the healthcare.
Yeah, that
is
it
that
could
what
like
you're
lower the quality of the healthcare. How would you?
saying? So
And that's something that I really care about is like having good quality healthcare.
yeah, so I
And
actually
yeah, like I said, I
have
don't
looked
really
into
know.
that because I was watching a show that I really like called My
Mhm.
600-Pound Life.
Okay.
I promise this is going somewhere valuable.
Okay.
And there's an American version of the show and a British version of the show.
Mhm.
And in the American version, the doctor makes an incision like this big and uses a tiny little robot and sends it in and is like doing all the work on a camera with the
Okay.
robot. And in the British version, they're literally like opening people's entire chest open and the doctor has like a giant staple gun and is going in there like with his whole arm like
Mhm.
you know, and I was like, that was a moment for me where I was like, do I support universal health care? Because
Yeah.
I just witnessed what I think is like the biggest potential problem with it.
Right.
So what I think, and again, I'm not like a political expert or a healthcare expert, is I want everyone to have access to like universal healthcare,
Mhm.
but I also think it's important and valuable to have privatized healthcare in tandem with that so that
Mm.
wealthier people can fund through wanting it research and access to better technology.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay. And how would that, maybe you don't know exactly how that would work in terms of,
Yeah, I
system.
think it would
Yeah.
work because everyone would have access to some version of healthcare,
Mhm.
but I do think it makes sense for wealthier people to have access to better healthcare,
Okay.
and through that funding research
Mhm.
that will make
Okay.
even the shittiest healthcare slowly better.
Yeah, something I do really care about and I think is valuable is, yeah, people funding really expensive research.
Yeah,
And so I don't want to lose that capacity.
yeah.
So,
I think it is
Yeah.
like
and the technology that we use is incredibly expensive, and so my question is, yeah, how would we fund that?
mhm.
Yeah, so without
Yeah,
privatized healthcare, and so
That's why I think
Right.
we need both.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, I can get down
And-
with that. Yeah, I will. I want to look into that more
Because
so.
I actually I really believe in like equal opportunity in general, and I think
Mhm.
access to healthcare contributes to equal opportunity.
Mhm.
But I do think people who work hard and put a lot of effort into having money,
Mhm.
like should have access to better things.
Mhm.
You know, so I am in favor of people who are accumulating wealth still
Mhm.
funding things that they care about and are interested in. If
Okay.
that's a yacht and creating better yachts, then
Mhm.
whatever. And if that's like
Mhm.
medicine, then it is.
It's interesting how you say that people who like work hard to make money deserve to have better things. What's your perspective on people who inherit money who didn't work for it at all?
Yeah, I think that's dumb as fuck.
Okay, inheritance, just the concept.
Yeah, see, I actually am a little conflicted on it because I can definitely see as like a person who, and I'm not somebody who like cares like is on a mission to accumulate a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But I could definitely see people who are accumulating money like seeing part of that value as creating a better life for their children.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not against inheritance at all, but I'm more interested in like inheritance caps
Okay.
and like income caps maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, because I do think wanting to create a better life for your children is a motivator for a lot of people, and I don't want to take away people's motivation.
You're right. Yeah, that is a huge motivator for people. Yeah.
Yeah, but I also don't want like essentially like lineages of billionaires who have who are just like hoarding wealth.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That's a concern of mine as well. And yeah, I haven't really known how to address it until now, because when someone does work really hard to make a lot of money, they do own that, and I think that is valuable.
Yeah.
And they do have a right to pass it on to their children. But then I have an issue with the amount of power that people who just inherit money then have, without necessarily having worked, like earned it.
I will say though, I feel like if we do have a world that's set up to give people more autonomy and like a better starting space for everyone, where they have access to like healthcare and good education, or at least decent education, you know, and a place to live and food to eat. Like when people's basic needs are taken care of, I actually am not as bothered by wealth discrepancies.
Okay. Same, yeah.
Because at that point, what those people have access to is more luxuries and not more basic needs, you know?
Right, or rather, their access to luxury isn't harming other people.
Exactly.
Right, that's really all I care about. I don't care if there is wealth inequality. I care that people aren't able to afford their own lives.
Yeah.
That's all I really care about. So I don't care if people are super rich. I care that people are like
super poor.
Ridiculously poor. So yeah, I feel like there are.
And I like I said, I'm not an economist, and I don't want to be like
nope, neither
upheld for knowing anything. I know nothing.
Upheld for you're saying it online. You're saying it to the whole world, so you will be judged.
Yeah,
we'll both be judged.
And I'm like pretty open to being told that I'm really freaking stupid and don't know anything.
I mean,
because it's true. So if somebody wants to give me like correct information, I will change my views.
Yeah, I mean, same. I feel like when it comes to some issues, I really wish that there were, how do I say this? I was going to say I really wish that there were more spaces in which I was like given the security and comfort to ask questions on a really simplistic, basic level so that people could just explain them to me like I'm a child so that I can understand them. But really, I just need to feel more confident to do that.
Yeah.
In general, because there are certain issues where I just feel like, one, I feel like a lot of people pretend that they know more about it than they do. And then they have this like conviction about their stance. And really, when you talk to them about it, they cannot break it down and explain to you why they believe that what they're saying is correct. They can't show you why it would work. And those are always the questions that I have. And then when I ask those questions, where I'm like, I don't really know how this would work, then I look like I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
But they're literally just pretending. Like no one, I know you want to talk, but I want to say one more thing. Because I feel like people do this all the time with like with discussions between like, or arguments about like whether capitalism or socialism is a more valid system. I feel like a lot of times people talk about capitalism and they do not understand economics. They don't have like the first basic foundational understanding about economics to even be talking about this. They just know that they think like socialism sounds better to them, like it sounds nicer. And so that's what they like about it. Mm-hmm. They don't have any understanding of how that would work whatsoever. And the same thing with capitalism. I think people have really simplistic notions of what capitalism is, and it just sounds like more freedom, but they don't really understand how capitalism works either. So I'm really tired of this. That whole dynamic is annoying to me. None of us really know as much as we think we do. Unless you do, which is cool. So.
That's something I really struggle with in like expressing my views in general too, is I feel, I don't know if afraid is the right word, but like not ready to have an argument with someone when I don't feel like I have like a bunch of like research and like every single thing. I can't like be like, oh, well, here's the fact on that and here's the fact on that, you know? And I'm not like willing to like go back and like find every source of everything I've ever read before, you know?
Mhm.
And then other people like in arguments or on the internet are like very convicted
Yeah.
in believing they know those things. So it stops me from like having discussions or arguments with people that I actually think could be valuable,
Mhm.
but I'm not willing to or not ready to deal with like backing up everything I say with
Yeah.
sources, which
Mhm.
people ask for, even though they don't have them either. You know? And
Right, yeah. No
so
one
I
cares
think
about sources
actually
with them.
the like stupidest people who are most convicted get to talk a lot more than people who maybe have, because the more you know you don't know type thing.
Yeah.
So it
Interesting,
yeah. I think there's actually a name for it I can't think of like how stupider people believe they're smarter.
That's interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating. Yeah, I just get frustrated when like someone is so convinced that something is the right way, and then you ask them, okay, like I could agree with you. Can you please just break it down for me so that I can understand exactly how this would work?
They just get defensive.
And then they can't, right, and they get defensive, and then it's like all of a sudden, oh, you're a bad person because you don't agree with me. It's like, well, why can't you explain what the fuck you're talking about? So that irritates me a lot.
Also, I think the problems with like communism, socialism, capitalism, anarchy, like all of them, if done like perfectly to the letter, could be successful for people, but none of those things are factoring in like elements of human greed. That I think that's the biggest problem. Like, we can't have pure socialism because places that have attempted to do it like fall to human greed. Pure capitalism, we've seen. We don't have pure capitalism in the U.S., but like we've seen a lot of the struggles of capitalism in the U.S. You know,
right? Yeah.
I do think we need this like pull of back and forth to get the best of both worlds, and I think we actually could have the best of both worlds in place, but also that also is just like set up to human greed and corruption, and that's always going to prevail.
Yeah, I think I'm really sick of like isms in general, and just the idea that you need to subscribe to one political ideology and subscribe to that like fully and in its purest sense. And I don't believe that that is at all valuable or productive.
Yeah,
I'm interested in figuring out what works for people, and not like subscribing to any kind of like utopian vision of like, well, this is the best way for society to be. I think we need to think about it in a in a lot less of an idealistic way.
I want to look at things issue by issue and what like realistically can be changed right now, and evaluate my decisions like moment to moment.
Yeah, I agree. I do want UBI though. It's what I want, but I can't like necessarily justify like that. The proposed method of funding it, like that Andrew Yang is proposing, like having a product tax, I believe that's what it is, that would increase prices. I can't justify that is appropriate, or that wouldn't have costs that are too high for us as a society. But it doesn't sound like a problem to me based on my like current knowledge of economics, which is like extremely low.
Your foot on the table whenever you're doing that is like
shaking the camera. Okay, I'm sorry about that. It's off the table. But I do think, you know, based on his argument that automation is going to become a huge problem for, in terms of like causing mass unemployment, I do think we need a solution to that.
And I think we need that solution before the mass unemployment happens.
Oh,
and
yeah.
not like mass unemployment for 15 years and we like slowly figure out UBI. Like,
well, and it's already happening. Like, people are already losing their jobs to automation, so it's in the process. Yeah, we
learn to code.
Right, just learn to code. Because there are going to be that many, coding jobs for everybody. That doesn't solve
I'm
the problem.
pretty sure eventually automation is just going to figure out how to code too.
Oh my god. Yeah. Let's not even get into AI.
Have you seen Ex Machina? I'm kidding.
Wait, who's calling it Ex Is it Ex Machina?
No, just the movie.
Okay.
I was just saying that
It's
because
Ex Machina, isn't it? Is that how you pronounce it?
No, it's Ex Machina.
Oh my god, that's so embarrassing. I thought it was.
But
Wait, why did they pronounce it that way in the movie?
that's just how it's pronounced. It's like a term besides the title of the
I've
movie.
never heard that term pronounced before. So.
I was making that as a joke because Joe Rogan always is asking people if they've seen that movie.
Have they really? Oh, I didn't know that he did that.
Yeah, he loved it's his favorite movie.
It is a really good movie. I haven't noticed it.
Yeah,
I haven't noticed him say that. I do think he is really concerned with AI.
Yeah,
and
I mean, a lot of people I really value their opinions on are concerned about it. Sam Harris is really concerned about it. Yeah. Stephen Hawking was very concerned about it.
That's true. I think we should be concerned about it, but there's also nothing we can do because Elon Musk says that it's too late and it's coming. And they could have stopped it before, but no one listened to him in that really cryptic moment on Joe Rogan when he talked about AI. So, yeah. Okay, but I want to get off. We're going off on a tangent, which is totally fine. But I want to talk about a couple of the other things that are related to the conference that I have.
I forgot about the conference.
I know, yeah. So one thing that was cool I want to talk about, maybe there's stuff to say about the session that we did have that Clara proposed about the dominant personalities creating hierarchies, and how everybody who went to that session had a dominant, was it dominant or strong personalities? I mean, I guess they're both the same maybe, but
she did use the word strong.
Okay. I was using dominant. You're right, strong personalities, but I use dominant
because you don't like the strong weak dichotomy.
That's not why. I just automatically was saying dominant. I'm not sure why, but
well, because I feel sorry.
No, go ahead.
I feel like I have a very strong extroverted personality, but in general I'm more submissive. But I still felt.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think that you really are submissive. I think you are in certain ways.
Oh, okay.
See, that's interesting. There's performative submissiveness. Do you feel like? But then there's
my submission is all performative.
I do, yeah. I don't think that the way that you engage with people is never submissive, unless it's
in that setting,
in a sexual way, right? I mean, are you ever submissive to people? And
I feel like I am in non-sexual ways. Yeah.
Okay,
I think it's depending on the other person.
That's interesting. Okay. But related to most people in society, I'd say that you have a very strong personality.
I guess that's actually why I enjoy being submissive, because I feel like I have a lot of power in a lot of situations. So I really enjoy when someone can break that down and take that away from me.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that maybe I have a strong personality, and I guess I could do.
You definitely do.
That's interesting because I'm an introvert, very much so, and I actually get really drained from socializing with people very quickly, and I can also.
But you're still good at it.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I mean, I can be quiet, and then I just will slowly figure out how I'm going to socialize with people in a space. But sometimes it takes me a little while to analyze the situation. I like to observe for a minute and then decide, okay, what is the best way for me to socialize in the way that's going to get me the most stuff that I want in that social situation. So yeah, I thought it was interesting to have that relationship between being a strong personality and also being an introvert. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it took me a long time to develop a strong personality, I think. Yeah.
I think one of the things I really valued in that conversation was, and to be fair, there were only strong personalities in that room, so we had a little bit of a circle jerk going. But
okay, I hate that term on so many levels, but I'm fine with it.
Something I really enjoyed was a conclusion that I took out of it is just if people aren't able to speak up for their needs, and I've created as much space as I can for people to be autonomous, I can't anticipate everyone's needs, and I am not coercing people just because I have a stronger personality and they're convinced or feel. Just because they feel like they have to do what I say doesn't mean they have to do what I say. Right. And that's not my responsibility to alleviate that for them all the time.
Mm-hmm. Word.
And that if I'm using truthful information, I'm not coercing people, or at least not in a way that I feel bad about.
So, yeah, and my position was that I think that it is really easy. Well, how would I say this? That I think that often we do coerce people, and that I think that coercing people has been stigmatized as something really oppressive and like evil and wrong, because people often associate that with like sexual assault, like, oh, this was coercion, like sexual coercion. And I think that coercion permeates every facet of our interactions with people. Like, coercion on its most like basic level literally just means like persuading, like pressuring or persuading someone to do something.
Yeah.
You're really just influencing them with whatever it may be, your social power, the fact that you may have like a better point, like just be more convincing than someone else, or have like a more like a more fun personality, whatever it is. And I don't think that's necessarily wrong. I think there are really negative forms of coercion, like threatening someone is really harmful coercion, but I don't think that all coercion is wrong.
Yeah, I think if you're not using violence or lies, I'm in general approving of convincing people to do stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, I wouldn't say I'm approving.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think it depends. I think that coercion can be shitty depending on what you're coercing someone to do.
Yeah, I can agree it can be shitty.
I think it depends, but I don't think that necessarily means that like you're oppressing them or that you're being violent toward them, which is what in like the context of sexual assault coercion has been defined as. So that is my issue. I think that people with strong personalities are typically really coercive, and that's okay. Not that it's just okay. It has costs. Let's be.
Yeah.
It has,
every choice has costs.
But in a lot of situations, I am willing to coerce someone to do something and take on those costs because I think that the benefits outweigh the costs.
You sure are.
Generally to me, but also I think to that other person in the whole situation, because I just often think that like my ideas are better. So, I mean, and honestly, like if you value yourself, you should think your own ideas are better.
Yeah.
Is my perspective on that.
Yeah, I think I'm right.
Yeah.
All my opinions are right.
I think that all of my opinions are either right or they're going in the right direction and I might need some guidance, or my opinion may be that I don't know enough about something yet and I want someone else to coerce me. But they better be good at it and I'm going to know if they're bad at it. So that's my whole thing, you know what I mean? You just have to like maybe we just need to teach people to be like, to have coercion literacy. The way that we teach people to be media literate. You teach people to understand, how is this person trying to coerce you? How can you respond to it? How are you going to either like resist it, or if it's somehow
embrace it,
right, going to be beneficial to you, like, do you embrace it? Yeah. Do you like go with what they're saying because it really is right, and then you take on that idea as your own, and then it's your idea. So
I just really want people to have as much autonomy as possible so that they can make genuine decisions.
That's what I want too. And that autonomy can't always be given. It depends. Sometimes, like,
I think
you need to develop it within yourself.
What we can do is, because I think a lot of people's autonomy is limited just by like not realizing they have autonomy.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So when I say give people autonomy, I guess I just mean like let people know that they have it.
Yeah. Which is, there's going to be like huge backlash against. Given a lot of like, I would say, you know, it's like a buzz term and I hate using it, but like the victim mentality that I think exists in a lot of like social justice leftist spaces, which is that like everything is oppressing me. The external world is like keeping me from thinking or doing anything that I really want to do. And those systems need to be abolished, rather than like, how can I actually be responsible for myself and like own myself and make my own choices.
Yeah, I think dismissing people's agency is one of my biggest problems with, like, the overall leftist dogma.
Me too. Like, I think both are true. I think there are systems that are influencing us in harmful ways. But I also think that people do have the power within them to resist those systems as well. And people often discount their own individual power that they have not to partake in that. Or rather, not to partake in it, but just not to be controlled by it or oppressed by it. It really depends on the situation. So, yeah. I don't think that people should only focus on like abolishing those systems and then forget about like, oh,
their own personal agency.
Right, and their own personal power. That's
Yeah.
really important. And then always basically act like everything is happening to them and never, perceive their own agency. That's
Yeah.
really important.
It's very important to me.
It's disempowering, and I think that there are a lot of things within leftism that are extremely disempowering to the individual and harmful to the individual.
Yeah.
So that's one of them. Word.
Also, fuck the right, too.
Oh, for sure, yeah. No.
Just to be clear, like,
Right.
we're not, like, alt-right adjacent or anything.
No, not at all. I mean, I would even say, I don't even know how I would identify. I don't identify as a centrist, even. I would say that, how do I put this? I agree with a lot of the things, with a lot of the issues that are considered leftist, but
But not the way to handle
I
them.
disagree with a lot of their approaches to things. Like, I
Yeah.
care about equality of opportunity,
Mhm.
although I'm not as concerned with equality of outcome. So I feel like
Yeah.
that does exclude me from the left.
Yeah, I'm not at all concerned with equality of
Mhm.
outcome. I want people, starting at the level playing field, to feel motivated by potential outcomes.
Yeah.
Which I think is taken away if you
Mm-hmm.
flatline an equality of outcome.
I think it's hard because the way that the political compass basically is set up, I think doesn't account for a lot of nuance.
Mm-hmm.
And even like people, I'd say like particularly people on the left don't want there to be any nuance. Like they are very much, and this is what
Black
I don't
and
like.
white.
Right, it's like, well, if you're not totally with us and totally leftist in every way, shape, or form, then you may as well be alt-right.
Yeah.
And I've even seen people on like social media say things like centrists are right wing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well then, what do you do with that? That's really
And
frustrating.
all it does is shut down conversation, which
Yeah.
they feel is beneficial. They don't want
Mhm.
conversation to happen.
No.
But I feel like it's very much like abolish everything or conserve everything. And those are like, people see that as
Yeah.
what's going on. And I think there's actually, and the more people I talk to, the more reasonable people I do find who are like, agree with us
Yeah.
about a lot of stuff.
I say that too, yeah, like when I've noticed when both of us, or anyone who kind of like agrees with our perspective on things, talks to leftists about a lot of the concepts that we've discussed so far, a lot of leftists will say, oh yeah, like I actually do agree with that. I've never talked to anyone about it before.
Mm-hmm.
Or like they've secretly had the same thoughts as us and they haven't felt that they should ever express that because they'd be persecuted.
Yeah, I attempt to like put my toe in the water around people, you know, and kind of like test if they might agree with me on more I'd say like anti-fragility concepts.
Mm-hmm.
And I am excited by the people I have found, and I actually feel much closer to the people who I've been able to like express those things to.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
it's like you especially.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah, I think it was interesting, like in the session on consent where, and I wasn't in the whole session, you were in the, and I popped in at the end.
I was actually very excited by that.
Will you talk a little bit about what was exciting?
Yeah.
While I really want to quickly get a LaCroix.
Okay.
I'm going to pop.
I think there's one in the fridge.
I know, you put one in the fridge for me. I'll be right back.
I was submitting.
Well, you weren't submitting, you offered.
I'm joking.
Okay. But you literally offered, is all I'm saying. Hurry up.
It was preemptive submission. Anyways, so something I like have a lot of difficulty with is consent culture and like the expectation that everyone will eventually, or maybe not the expectation, but even like the hope that everyone will eventually move to this like ongoing verbal consent practice. That's something I don't want in my life. I don't want to do it. I don't want people to do it to me. And as I like cultivate this world of autonomous people, which is what I care about, I want to kind of have like blanket consent, and then people can tell me if they start to get uncomfortable with something or tell me no, unless they set like a specific boundary, you know, then like I know in advance. But I don't want to like anticipate and ask someone for every single thing. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And so where with the conference, sorry, I forgot about it again. So usually that is a pretty like transgressive thing to say, and I was expecting during the consent talk to have people be pretty angry about that because I have dealt with that in the past. But in general, I mean, it's possible some people were being silent because they were like afraid, because I did have a lot of power in that room as someone who like organized the conference, I feel.
Okay.
But in general, people seem to agree with it, and even some people are saying like they don't want that for themselves, but they don't think I'm like a horrible, evil person for wanting that,
Okay.
which is not the usual reaction that I get.
Mhm.
So I really enjoyed that. And then Juno came in more towards the end.
It was literally like, I feel like I came in 10 minutes before it ended because I was in another session that I chose to go to. So I like ran in there. I'm like, oh, what are they talking about?
Yeah, and then it was cool because you like repeated a lot of my points and thoughts with way better wording, which I always appreciate about you. And do you feel, because I actually did end up leaving to do something else before you were done talking, but do you feel like the reaction was similar and like agreeable?
Yeah, actually a lot of people said that they did agree with what I was saying. I mean, my whole stance is that I think that people can use affirmative ongoing consent if they would like to, with like within their intimate relationships. If that's what they want to do, like they can talk about it and do it if they want to. What I don't agree with is specifically radical feminist consent rhetoric that frames that structure of consent as the kind of as the kind of consent that is prescribed for the entire culture. Yeah. And that if you don't subscribe to that and you don't practice consent in that way, then you've committed sexual assault. And that if you've experienced sexual interactions where consent wasn't practiced in that way, then you are automatically a victim of sexual assault or rape. I do not believe that it is at all helpful to people even. And I believe that it's actually disempowering to claim that that is the model of consent that should be used for the entire world. You know?
Yeah, and I think that telling people who don't feel like they were raped that they were raped,
that's insane. That's really fucked up.
It bothers me when it happens to me.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like when I hear that, I'm like, no, I wasn't raped. Fuck you.
Right.
But some people I feel like I've witnessed have taken that and been like, oh my god,
I know,
I was raped. And it actually changes their like self-perception, which I also think is like extraordinarily negative.
Yeah. It makes people feel... one, how do I say this? One, I think that it influences people. I think it coerces people to feel to feel like they have been victimized when they haven't. I think that it's very easy through language and through like cultural signifiers to make people feel like something has happened to them, to give people a specific kind of affect when they did not experience this thing that people want them to think that they experienced. So I think it's harmful. It's disempowering. It made me like, so when I was first learning about consent rhetoric in college, literally I was basically told, according to this theory, that I had been raped several times by everyone who I had had sex with. Okay, so I left that consent education feeling horrible about myself. I just felt like, one, that like men had all victimized me and that I was going to be victimized by men
forever
for the rest of my life. And that it was all their responsibility to have, like, they should have taken care of me. They should have anticipated my needs. And that I didn't have to take any responsibility for my own sexual desires or sexual boundaries. That was all on them. And how is that at all empowering to women? Making men have to be responsible for women's sexual boundaries. Mm-hmm. That's really fucking patriarchal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hate that. So. And
something I actually recently had an experience with was telling someone, like, at the beginning of interaction, like, just so you know, we're, like, not gonna have sex. Mm-hmm. You know? And then within that day, by the end, we did have sex. And I feel... Mm-hmm. I do feel like a lot of people, even people that I care about, would see that as, like, very coercive or that he had done something wrong. But he did through the day convinced me to have sex, and by the
Mhm.
time I did it, I wanted to.
Mhm.
You know, like,
Yeah.
and that's why I had sex, you know?
Right.
And I don't feel like he did anything wrong.
Mhm. Yeah, same. I've been in similar situations where I've said like I don't want to have sex, and then over time I'm like as the night progressed and things changed and like he like the person I was with was more sexually assertive than me,
Yeah.
and so just like more dominant and kind of like coerced me into it. Like yeah, like there was a little bit of like pressure and persuasion and but then I wanted to like or else I wouldn't have done it. If I didn't want to do it, I wouldn't have given in to that pressure because I'm a strong enough person where I would just say like no, I don't want to do this right now.
Exactly.
Like no one's going to coerce me to do something I actually don't want to do or don't feel like there's some benefit to me doing it.
And that's back to the strong personalities thing, because a common argument I hear against that is like, well, not everybody's as strong as you. You
Well,
know?
that's too.
And it's like,
sorry.
like I don't believe, like nobody can't say no in a situation unless there's like violence or lies.
Yeah, unless you're literally
Uh.
like threatening someone's safety, like physical safety, you
Yes.
can always say no.
And because there's tons of the stuff of like, oh, well, they were like societally trained and whatever. Like,
Mhm. Okay, yeah, so that does happen.
yeah,
And people
but
feel like they can't say no, but then that's like something that you have to work on within yourself.
yeah, I can't set up my life working around how everybody was trained.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I was trained by a super like abusive upbringing to do all kinds of stupid shit. You know?
We all were.
Yeah. And
well, not all of us, I guess. I'm like biased because I was also trained to do a lot of like really fucked up shit. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I don't blame like other people who interacted with that and benefited from that, because they didn't like work around my shitty training.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, like I have PTSD from like being abused as a child, and so like through a lot of my life, I definitely was very susceptible to like going along with what other people wanted to do. Like I was afraid of other people. And that was my problem to deal with. No one else could have known that about me. And it's not anyone else's responsibility to manage that unless they're my therapist. And not everyone is my therapist.
Yeah.
So
Or,
yeah.
you know, sometimes I do, if I like know I'm gonna interact with someone a lot, tell them maybe how I feel about something, and they can choose to interact with it or not.
Mm-hmm. I think that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like how do I put this? Like knowing about your own trauma and like your own issues is really important, and knowing what can make you feel easily coerced, and like then like making it a priority to deal with that and like try to find ways to resist that is really important for your self-care, you know?
That actually reminds me to something else that I got that was really valuable out of the conference, especially our mini conference, which is referencing like the few people who we hung out with most of the time. Was we did this activity where we talked about our least favorite things about each other.
Oh yeah, that was really interesting. That was
yeah, it was really valuable to me under that framework to actually talk to a few people about difficulties I was having with them, and including like outside of that group, I then like went to like 2 other friends and were like, oh, we did this activity where we said our least favorite thing about each other, and then that just breeds being like, well, let's do it now.
Yeah.
You know? So I felt like that was super valuable to me, and I feel like I got to have 3 difficult conversations in not difficult settings because of that.
Yeah, that was really valuable to me too.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. Although the thing that like one of the people said was their least favorite thing about me, I actually already knew that. So I'm making it a point to like prioritize not doing that thing more now that like he spoke about it. So, but I kind of already knew.
I don't remember what it is.
It was when John said that he didn't like it when I asked for things all the time, like trying to use like affirmative consent, like, hey, is it okay? So that's interesting. Yeah. found that valuable as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to talk about the, I want to talk about the PDA conversation a little bit too.
Yeah.
Although I feel like the people who were with us in that conversation are here to defend their position, so that's like kind of.
I actually think it might be cool because both of them know that we're doing this podcast, and not a lot of people do. Maybe we're going to Ohio to see all together in a few weeks to see if they would record a podcast episode with us about that subject.
Okay, so should we not talk about it here then?
I feel like we could talk about it a little bit. Yeah, and then they'll be able to defend themselves.
Yeah, let's do a podcast.
Future episode.
Okay, we'll ask
Which,
them.
when it exists, I will put a link to it right now.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah. I feel like the overall argument, the overall argument from the other people who are not here was that public displays of affection have a lot of different social costs to them and to other people. So for them, and I agree with these social costs, by the way, I think that when you engage in PDA with someone, it can create the sense that you are like owned by them or possessed by them. It can make it seem like it can communicate to people outside of you certain things about your relationship that may disempower you in some way. So for instance, the example given was like if you're arm candy for someone, like walking into a restaurant, it makes it, see, this is like where it gets a little like fuzzy for me. I don't totally understand this because I don't feel disempowered by
other people's perception of you.
Yeah, I don't feel like power is taken away from me when I'm perceived as being intimate with someone in public. So I don't totally understand that, so I don't want to speak for that person, but that was kind of like the general one of the arguments that was given. So like when we do that, if we do that podcast with these people, I would like to like have that explained more. And then there's also the perspective that like when you engage in PDA with one person, it can possibly like cut you off from the possibility of connecting intimately or at all, even like in a non-intimate way, whatever, in any way with people other than them. So it makes it seem harder for people to interact with you because they perceive you as like with that person, like, oh, they're with that person. You know, I'm not articulating it totally well because it's not my argument.
Yeah, so. I also think that's only a problem in places where people expect monogamy or even like close polyamory. Mm-hmm. And in a world or a space where people expect everyone to be like their own agents, that seeing me like kiss someone or touch someone doesn't like mean they no longer can access me.
So I actually don't agree with what you're saying right now, and I do agree with the other point because, yes, in general, it doesn't mean that that someone who wants to interact with you won't ever interact with you if they see you like kissing someone in that space. But in that moment, it does impede that. Like if I see you kissing someone else like in a public space or hanging out, I'm gonna feel like more apprehensive to go up to you and start a conversation because I'm like, oh, they're having an intimate moment that's like their private thing. And so I do feel like something that is like coded as private is happening in public, and so then I shouldn't interfere with it. So it does disrupt social interaction. Okay. And like the flow of like social interaction.
Okay. I guess
so that's true. Also, like regardless of it being in a monogamous space or not, if I do like see someone who I may be attracted to, kissing someone else or whatever, like being flirtatious with someone else, I am going to feel like there's going to be some hesitation, a little more hesitation on my part to go over to them and start flirting with them too. I'm going to feel like, oh, this person has dibs on that person right now.
I feel like that also happens if people are in a deep conversation though.
I actually don't as much. I don't. Okay. No, I don't feel that way. Now, that may be because I'm putting sexual things on a...
Are you pedestalizing sex?
I might be pedestalizing sex, which is another conversation. Yeah. But I want to, like, get to the final... Not the final, but, like, one of the other important points that this person was making about, like, the problems of PDA, which was that... So, like, he was saying how, like, in social situations, it is basically like a marketplace of people exchanging ideas, and gaining capital from doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I may be like using the wrong like verbiage here, but like he can clear that up at another time, maybe. Hopefully. So, but I think I'm representing it accurately. And so each individual should be responsible for expressing their own value and like, and how do I say this? And like trading their own capital with other people in that social situation. So like showing how they are valuable and like participating on their own terms. And when you
Or just froze for a second.
yeah.
Okay. Doesn't know what was lost exactly.
I mean, yeah, I don't exactly know what was lost, but basically I was saying that the other argument this person was making was that conversations and social situations are an exchange of like what each individual person brings to that conversation, like their value in this marketplace of ideas. And so each person is responsible for bringing their own value to a social situation and trading that with other people in the terms of like in the case of social interactions. So when you do like PDA with someone, you are potentially like either giving them social capital that they have not earned in that social situation, like supporting them if they may be like a really quiet person, or making them seem like better or like cooler or whatever more than they are based on being connected to you. Mm-hmm. So there's that aspect of it. Or in some cases, it could actually decrease their value because then they're seen as like not, which was I think like the point that Clara was making, which because it how do I say this? It hinders them from actually contributing as an individual to the situation in some cases. So I think that it depends on the context, but either way, like those are costs that can occur.
Yeah.
And so, oh yeah, I know I've been talking for a super long time. Do you want to say something?
I'll wait.
Okay. The final thing that I thought was interesting, what was it? I just had it. Was that John was saying that, oh yeah, his goal is to allow the people who he cares about in social situations to become stronger and to be able to contribute their value to social situations without being supported through like a private like relationship that they may have, or a private way of like interacting that they may have as well. So not supporting them through PDA is a way of like helping them to become stronger. And I do really value that, actually. I think that's interesting. Like not letting them like rest on him like a crutch or anyone. So I think those are valuable arguments. With that said, with all those costs considered, I still like to engage in PDA.
And I still value PDA for other reasons besides that I just like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I actually do find value in the messages I receive from other people giving PDA. Like, I do think, yeah, it gives people unearned, or at least unearned in that space, social capital. But it is, like, showing me information like, oh, this person who I, like, really value and thinks has good judgment has decided that this person is worthy of, like, spending a lot of time and intimacy with. Which is valuable information to me. And I also think like support through physical touch. I don't know. I do think it has value. I feel like I had a better argument before the camera when we talked about this earlier, and now I've like lost it.
Well, why do you think it has value? I feel like this is like really uneven. This bra strap situation.
Well, I think it publicly displaying intimacy does build it and make it stronger.
I think so too. I agree with that, which is important. Something that I value.
I also enjoy the act of maybe, especially around normal people, building an expectation. Like if they see me doing PDA with one person, they might like code that in their mind as like, okay, they're together, they own each other or whatever. And then if they witness me then doing PDA with another person, it actually, I think, causes a bigger like shatter than if they saw no PDA at all.
Yeah, I think like communicating that you are intimate with several different people is a really important thing to communicate in our society.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't.
Hmm. I mean, I have more to say about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I had something I was just about to say about that. Let me see if I can remember it really quick. Um, well, I mean, which this isn't much of an argument, but I mean, the reason why I am willing to sacrifice or I'm willing to put up with the costs that the other two people were referencing in terms of PDA is because I'm not willing to deny myself something that I genuinely and authentically desire in a moment when I may not be in a private space. So if I really like, I often desire touch and not just in private like spaces where I have to make sure, okay, now we're in private and I have to wait. Yeah, I often desire touch, and I'm not gonna like say, okay, I can't do this because I'm afraid of what I might be communicating, and I'm willing, yeah, again, to put up with those costs in order to satisfy that desire.
And also, I think we're both people who like speak our mind pretty openly, you know. And I feel like it's the same thing. Like I don't want to like monitor all my actions and all my thoughts and all my words.
Right.
And my desire to touch people in PDA does feel like more natural to me, and it's not something I want to like think about monitoring all the time.
Yeah.
Another reason, which I don't think this is like a thing everybody should care about, but a reason I find my PDA very, very valuable is I have relationships with like a lot of people that I enjoy, and it's impossible for me to create one-on-one spaces with all of them in any kind of reasonable amount of time. So a lot of my interactions with people I super like are only in group settings. So if that's like, if I didn't touch them in front of other people, we would literally like only get to touch each other a couple times a year. Like that seems insane to me to give that up.
Yeah. I wouldn't give that up either. I do think that within the context of doing like engaging in PDA and something that we talked about that I want to work on is that if I'm in like a group setting, a non-private setting, a public setting, I don't want to feel pressured within myself to have to like distribute PDA equally to everyone who may be expecting it based on private interactions that we've had. I would like to feel more confident with just engaging in PDA with the person or people that I want to engage in with it at that time, and like rebuffing other people who may be expecting it. Yeah. So that's the difficulty that I have with engaging in PDA, is that then like everyone may expect it.
Which I think is the fits John's argument of, well, I want to make the people I'm with stronger so they can fucking deal with it.
Yeah, I feel that way too. Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to give someone PDA because they feel entitled to it. Like, if I do it, it's because I desire it.
Yeah, and I need to get better at rejecting people. So, and they need to get better at
taking
accepting it and not taking it like I'm rejecting them as a whole person. Sometimes I am, but in a lot of situations I'm not. So it's just like one aspect or like an act that they're engaging in. So
also, something I said earlier that I still think is important is our friend John, who like has a lot of these arguments, is pretty like universally good looking and has a super strong like very attractive personality.
I don't know if he's universally good looking.
I don't think anyone is universally
okay, that was just an interesting term, universally.
I feel
we both think he's attractive.
And a lot of people lots of people would
I think he would I think that's true. He does fit norms of attraction.
Yes. So obviously, like, he has a lot of unearned social capital from being physically attractive and being an extrovert. And I think, so when I see John not touching anybody in a space, to me it sends a message of like, oh, he's too good to do that to anyone. And if somebody who can't, like, is quieter and not good looking is like not touching anyone in that way, I see the exact same action as like, oh, they don't have access to touch anyone,
right?
You know. So I actually don't think that that cost is being like interrupted by John not touching anyone. I think it's still 100% there.
You don't think that cost? Wait, say that again.
Yeah, the like like, even if nobody was touching anybody, I don't think the, like, cost of unearned social capital is alleviated.
Okay. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's why we engage in PDA still. Although I will say, like, I do get nervous, like, I do get uncomfortable sometimes when we are engaging in PDA because I don't want to reinforce the idea of, like, coupledom. I do want to be perceived as, like, an individual person. And so sometimes I do worry, like, oh, if we are seen engaging in PDA a lot, then that will become something that we're reinforcing. You know, so that's important to me, and I'm not sure how to weigh the cost.
I also don't want to be perceived as a couple.
Do you really?
Yeah, okay. I don't.
Because sometimes you make jokes about it, and I'm just
yeah, they are jokes.
They're just jokes.
They are jokes.
All right, cool.
I don't want to be perceived as a couple, but I do enjoy being perceived as someone who has access to you because I think you're very valuable.
Okay, thank you. Have I earned that value, or am I inherently valuable?
I mean, you are good looking and have a strong personality.
Okay.
But there's lots of earned things about you, too.
Well, okay.
And I think by the rest of my actions, including things like how I am publicly visible on the internet and stuff, would make it very hard for someone to perceive me as belonging to an exclusive couple.
You're right. And you are physically affectionate with other people in the same spaces as me a lot.
Yeah.
And you do actively deny things that I ask for a lot. So, yeah, that works to counteract that, I guess. But yeah, so that, I'm just saying, like, that anxiety is still there a little bit when it happens, so.
Yes.
Yeah, but there's nothing.
I'd say the biggest struggle of us being perceived as a couple would be if we entered more normal spaces, which we don't often do. And even so, I would enjoy someone thinking we are a couple and then actively breaking that perception down rather than the perception never happening in the first place.
Right, okay. I like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like having the expectation and then destroying the expectation. But you have to have some kind of visible signifier of what people expect in order to destroy it in front of them. So
that is true.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to also, like, live my whole life of, like, oh, if there's not two people around for me to give PDA to, then I'm not going to give PDA to you.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That would take way too much, like, analytical thought, which I don't want to engage in.
Yes.
Like, I just want to be affectionate when I want to be affectionate in the moment and not worry about, like, what the costs are.
Yeah.
So that's important to me for sure. Yeah.
And I actually think in any space, us being affectionate with each other, even if it's upholding coupledom, is at least putting, like, queer energy out there, which is still, like...
I like your, like, queer energy.
Which is still, like, more transgressive than straight energy.
That's true. It's not enough for me, which is why I want to...
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a way that you, like, want to handle that in the future?
I don't know.
Do you have any ideas about?
I want to think about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's really interesting.
Okay. Sweet. Yeah. I'm also really enjoying the way that dress looks on you.
Okay.
In,
So I actually have been thinking, like, throughout this video,
really interesting,
that I'm really excited to turn this dress into a romper instead of a dress, because I like the idea of it being, like, little shorts.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do too, and it looks like little shorts.
Yeah, which
in
has
the video
made me
right
excited to do that.
Yeah, I think it would be a very cool look because you have this kind of, like, formal, like, puffed sleeve.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh, it's a romper.
Yeah.
And that's, I like that whole thing.
And I almost, like, am disappointed that this doesn't have shoulder pad. Or I guess it has, like, a tiny little shoulder pad, but I want, like, a...
Really? I would have wanted to have... I don't want to have shoulder pads. No, I don't want to have shoulder pads. Okay. I don't want to have shoulder pads.
Well, you have no control of my clothes.
But it doesn't have shoulder pads, so...
It has a tiny one.
Okay, but I'm just saying not enough of one for me to know that there's a shoulder
pad. But yeah, I'm excited to make this into a romper, actually.
Cool. I'm excited for you. So what else is cool about the conference, or not cool?
Did we have any other notes?
We had a ton of discussion about, which was, like, ongoing, I feel like, for days, whether or not people have inherent value.
Oh, yeah.
Which then at one point we were accused of, like, well, not accused, but, like, questioned as to whether or not we were talking about eugenics.
Which we were not.
Which we are not, but it's also, like, we could have been, and we can have a discussion about eugenics.
Yeah.
Yeah, like...
But, so the thing is, we were arguing with someone who I feel like even though they're not religious anymore, was coming from a little bit of a religious standpoint. And
Which
even
she
they
did
admitted
say,
that.
like, I may be coming from a Christian standpoint.
Yeah.
I'm also feeling, like, nervous, though, about, I don't want to misrepresent other people's arguments who aren't here. This is...
Well, they can correct us if
Okay.
they want to.
If they want to be on the podcast, which they would have to be in order to correct us. So it's kind of us, coercing.
Let's
them to do
coerce
that.
them. Let's do a super wrong argument.
Which I think
so
that maybe she would love to be a guest on this
I think
podcast.
she would love it. I think she...
I like how we're just anticipating.
I don't think
it.
anybody else would talk the entire
Oh,
podcast.
No, I don't think that's true at all. But...
I'm joking. She would get that joke.
Okay.
Well,
I got the joke.
I'm saying she wouldn't think that was me.
Okay.
She would also understand it was a joke.
Well, all right. Let's...
Anyway. So
inherent value.
We were arguing a little bit because at least I was saying, like, I care about everyone's needs being met,
Mm-hmm.
but not because I think they have inherent value, but just because I think it's, like, beneficial to the world.
Yeah.
So we kind of had come to the same conclusion, I feel, which is that we want people's basic needs to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
But her reason was because every single person...
I'm sorry. I'm listening to you. I'm just also fixing my hair.
I thought you said no.
No, I'm saying nope to the fact that I put my hair behind my ears.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought you were
Which I
saying,
didn't
like, I was misrepresenting her.
Nope. No, I'm sorry.
She came to that conclusion sort of because she believes everyone has inherent value, and I'm saying I don't think inherent value is possible. I don't think it exists. I don't think people have it. I still want everyone's needs to be met.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, when you say, I think that's really, like, vague, like, general, when you say everyone's needs met. So I can't agree or disagree with that, because, like, what specific needs? Like, you would have to say, like, what needs.
I mean, we're talking about, like, when people say, like, people have the right to clean water, the right to healthcare, the right to education.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things I want people to have access to, regardless of anything else about them.
Okay, yeah.
But I don't think anyone has a right to anything.
Yeah, so I don't agree. I don't think that all people have inherent value or worth. I think that my value system is based on self-interest. So I think that people have value to me based on like how what they bring to my life.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very much based on how they are subjectively valuable to me. I don't think that anyone has objective value.
Yeah.
That they are just born with. They have to somehow, not necessarily even earn it, but just, like, they have to somehow, like, fit my value system in some way. On the subject of rights, I'm really critical of the concept of positive rights, the idea that people have rights to things, because within positive rights, that creates a duty. So if someone has a right to something, that automatically creates a duty for other people to give it to you. Mm-hmm. Okay? And that infringes upon their freedom. So then there's the concept of negative rights, which is that people have the right to not have their freedom infringed upon. So I have the right. I like that. Right. So that's considered a negative right. You don't have a right to something. You have a right to not be messed with in any way. So some positive rights can infringe upon other people's negative rights, which I think, like, autonomy and liberty are kind of like my top values. They are my top values. And so making sure that people get their needs met can interfere with that. And I haven't exactly reconciled that conflict yet. Mm-hmm. The thing about, so, like, in a natural situation, like in a state of nature, let's say, people having the right to food actually isn't a problem, because you would be able to just go get your own food. Now, when we live in, like, a post-industrialized society, we don't have as much access to land to just go get our own food. Mm-hmm. That's a lot harder. You do pretty much have to buy food for the most part with money.
I mean, there are, like, you can go dumpster diving.
You could go dumpster diving, but a lot of times that's actually illegal.
Yeah, it is.
Like, people will,
not
like,
just a lot of times it is illegal.
People will, like, padlock their dumpsters or something. You know what I mean?
Or destroy good food just so people don't dumpster.
Right. So I think there's an argument to be made that in, like, post-industrialist, like, capitalist society, post-industrial capitalist society, that people maybe like should have the right to food because our access to natural resources has been so limited by private ownership of land. I think there's an argument there to be made.
But it's not inherent. It's like because of this.
It's not inherent. It's because, I think that
Yeah.
people do maybe need to have that right because we recognize that our free access to what I think should be free, like I think that natural resources should be free. Like I think that privatizing them could be considered a form of theft from the people, from like all people who it should all be like commons. So in that case, maybe we need the right to life to like counteract the privatization of natural resources.
Yeah.
With that said, I'm not like against private property or like the private ownership of businesses or like industry. I'm critical of the notion of privately owning what I consider to be like natural resources that should be commons. Yeah, and I'd be willing to be challenged on that too. Like I'm not, like I could be totally wrong, but that seems to be what makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of like healthcare and education, I want people to have access to that, like I said, because I want to live among people who are all healthy and self-actualized and educated and intelligent. That's going to be the most beneficial society for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Who would want to like live in a society with a bunch of people who are uneducated, are sick and dying?
People who are deriving power from that.
People who are deriving power and never have to really interact with those people. Like don't ever have to live among them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most people don't actually want to live in a society like that. It creates a horrible society. It creates a violent society based on scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I want people to have healthcare and education, to have access to those things. However, I don't necessarily want to call them rights, but maybe like the food argument I was making, we should call them rights in order to counteract the harms that we perceive of not giving people access to those things.
And I'm okay with using imperfect language and like large, broad strokes,
Okay.
right? But I feel like because we were having a specific conversation about that, then I wouldn't want to use the word rights at all. You know
what word would we use? Just like give them access?
I would say I want to give them access.
Okay, and that's what I would say too. I would say I want them to have these privileges because I do think they're privileges.
Yeah.
And so I'm not against privilege. I actually want more people to have more privilege. Yeah, so...
Yes, okay.
Yeah, I definitely think they're privileges and not rights.
Yeah.
Which I want everyone to have, like I've said a million times already. But yeah, yeah.
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 I found the final discussion that we had at the conference about direct action very exciting.
Okay.
I do feel like people were very excited about doing activities and like actually participating and changing the world, which I don't think is actually very common in normal conversation. And it gave me like a lot of hope and made me feel inspired and excited, including about like a potential like community resource type center that we talked about a little bit.
Yeah.
That I would like to raise money for in the future, when we have it more like fleshed out.
Okay.
But that just like the idea of that, I've been thinking about it a lot and very excited about it and masturbating to it.
You're masturbating to it.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's just like so like it's like pent up inside me and I have to release it.
Never experienced that before. Where I've masturbated to something like that. Cool. Yeah, I think it's exciting too.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope we get to talk a lot more about that in the future.
I would love to.
And then another thing that gave me a lot of hope and made me feel very good about the conference was at the end, I like had this full expectation that it was going to be like a day of drudgery and cleaning. And actually everybody came together and like cleaned things up like very fast as a community. And I was even like going room to room to like check and make sure the chairs were like back in order for the space that we had. And like, so before I even got to it, it was done, which was, just felt like very impactful to me.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome. The cleanup was really fast. I do think that I forgot that lamp. The second lamp.
Oh.
Oh. I think it was left in that room.
Well, we could still go get it.
Okay.
It'd probably look weird for us to like take a lamp out of the room, but
I wonder if it's still there. I got like put somewhere.
Yeah. I bet the cleaning crew doesn't even like know if that lamp belongs there.
Okay. All right.
That would be my guess.
All right.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. I mean, there were other things that we talked about, like gender, but I mean, I feel like we could save a gender discussion for an entire episode
Yeah, and
to talk about.
it's a lot of talking.
I think we should end this podcast episode.
I am down with
I'm
that.
Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more from us, subscribe. You can also support the podcast by visiting our Patreon at snakeoilpodcast.com.
We love connecting with our listeners, so we've also set up a P.O. Box where you can send us anything that you would like. And the address for that is P.O. Box 1436, Warren, Michigan 48090.
You can also support the podcast for free by liking, commenting, or sharing. We both also have solo projects. I can be found anywhere on social media under @BenzyNow. And then I also have a solo YouTube channel called Benzathesius.
And I also have a solo podcast called Bedroom Eyes, which you can find on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and Podbean. And you can follow me on Twitter @JunoMariah.
I'll have all those links down below. Thank you so much, and see you next time.
Shabba-da-dooba, shabba-da-cha. Scoop, scoop, leap, bop, boo, da dooba, 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 da.